Welcome everyone. My name's Rachel Andrews and I'm the Chief Instructor for the Power Schemes. But I'm here tonight to talk to you about all the updates from the RYA training schemes over the last year. So heading straight into that then, the absolutely topical thing to point out is the coronavirus situation. And I just wanted to say that from the point of view of RYA training and the RYA, we are in this together, we're here with you. And we really are thinking a lot about our instructors, our training centres, and obviously the people who like to get out and about on the water just as we do. So we'd really like for you to try to stay active as far as possible, as far as is allowed within the lockdown in the area you're in. So not everybody on here is from the UK. And that you look after your health and well-being and think about those around you. We've got a lot of information, much like every organisation out there, all the news channels, everything. It's almost wall to wall on COVID-19. But I just wanted to point out a couple of resources that we've got on the RYA training site. So we've got on the RYA website, pretty much front and centre of the RYA website, you'll find that there is a dedicated area about COVID-19. And if you head on to the RYA training support site, you'll find in the top news section that's in the middle of the page, we've also got coronavirus advice, which includes our FAQs that are specifically aimed at instructors and training centres. So please do take a moment to check those out if you've got any questions. Hopefully most things will be in there. What we're hoping to do during this lockdown period is to be able to help you along and to give any information or try to kind of keep us all working together within training, and we should be producing a fair amount of stuff that will come out, and we will send out some information on social media asking you for input and the sort of things that you'd like to hear from us, whether it be fun stuff, coaching stuff, or anything else. We just give us your ideas and we'll see what we can do. In the meantime, there's plenty of stuff already online. We've got the RYA's YouTube channel, we've got the British Sailing Team YouTube channel, and the places to look for us are on the RYA Training Facebook page and the British Sailing Team, as it says on there. One more thing to mention about COVID-19 is that the RYA offices will be closed from the 4th to 19th of April, and there will be no staff working. A very, very skeleton crew. So anything that you're hoping to get answered will need to be done in the next day, or wait until the 20th of April when we're all back and up and running again, ready to help out with those queries. Heading into the training update then, I wanted to say from RYA Training a huge thank you for everything you do and everything you've done in the last year to do with RYA Training. You might be thinking that the people who are working in Hamble in the RYA offices are the RYA in your eyes, but every single one of the people who you've taught to powerboat, do windsurfing, dinghy sailing, inland waterways, powerboating, personal watercraft, all of these activities, plus the sail cruising and motor cruising activities, they all know that you are the RYA. So a huge thank you. It's your efforts that maintain us as the leading training provider in the world. So thank you so much for your efforts. On that note, RYA Training is 50 years old this year. So what we would really like from you is some stories, almost the older the better, to be honest. This is where we come into our own. Stories about training courses you've done, courses you've delivered. It could be something funny, it could be something serious, it could be what RYA Training has done in order to further your career. It could be anything. We really are very interested to hear what RYA Training has done for you. So please pop stuff into that 50 years at rya.org.uk, and we'll be in contact to move things forwards. There's this link. I must say that the slideshow will also be available afterwards, and we'll send you a copy of it, so you don't need to be scribbling too much down as we go along. So a little bit of who's who in the small boat world. So just to reiterate, this update is for training centres and instructors working within dinghy, multi-hull, keelboat, windsurfing, powerboating, inland waterways and personal watercraft. we won't be doing an update for the sail and motor cruising schemes, nor for the shore-based side of things. This is the update that would normally have been delivered at the regional instructor training days. So hopefully there's not too many disappointed people there, but if there is, I will excuse you thinking that it might not be for you. Anyway, back onto this slide then. So there are lots of people who work in training, and the key people for you within these schemes would be Molly and Emma, who are the two administrators to do with the schemes as you read on there. And they are an absolute font of knowledge. So if you've got a question that you're thinking, oh, I need to get hold of Rachel or Amanda to ask them that, that's fine. We're not always in the office and we're not always available, but these guys know absolutely everything about the schemes and can often find you that answer much quicker, especially if it's to do with where to find extra information, where exactly that lives. So please do use them as the font of knowledge that they are. And then on the recognition side of things, we've got Chloe and Helen, who are absolutely on top of this, and they know everything there is to know about RYA recognition and the inspections process. And I should add into that also that we'll have Michelle returning soon to join that team. So we have lots of knowledge within our training, within the training department. And then there's myself and Amanda, and we are the chief instructors, myself for the power schemes and Amanda for dinghy, windsurfing, keelboating, multi-hull. So that's a kind of intro to the who's who in the small boat side of things. So we've got a fair few different things to run through on this update, but one huge piece of news that has been worked on almost tirelessly by Amanda Van Santen is the fact that sailing is back on to the GCSE and A-level PE syllabus. So that is in no small amount down to the support that you gave us when Amanda asked for you to help out and to write to your MP or to complete the surveys. That has really pushed this forwards, and it has resulted in, from September 2020, sailing is back. So big well done to everybody who helped out with that. That really is great news. So safe to say, last year the power scheme was fairly well, fairly popular, with a fair amount going on. And we could see on the PW side of things, we've got quite a lot of increases there, and that will mostly be down to the super yacht industry, but not exclusively. So moving on to the sailing and windsurfing side of things, we're pleased to see that the instructor side of things is really healthy. Lots of people coming through and wanting to be instructors, and we've got some, there are some initiatives that are afoot to try to encourage more people forwards and to give them a bit of an idea about instructing, which I'm sure your IDOs will let you know about in due course. As you can see on the sailing and windsurfing side of things, we've got big increases in the overseas market in terms of the sales. Again, we're talking last year's information. But one thing just to recall is that every time you order something from the dinghy and windsurfing side of things, you can get taster certificates for free. And I'll come on to those in a couple of minutes, but don't discount them as just something that people might not be interested in. They can be really useful. So we've had a number of different surveys running, and what we're always really interested in the results of those. And at the moment, the ones that we've had out there are closed, but that information will come forwards, and we'll talk about that in a little while. But if you do have any feedback for us, please don't hesitate to get hold of us in the training department. So as mentioning about those certificates, we know that not all centres are actually issuing certificates, but we don't necessarily know why. Issuing of certificates is really helpful to us because it allows us to understand what's going on within a scheme and to understand where the demand is. And as you can see on that, adults really do want to get one. I remember I've got several from taster sessions that I've done of different activities. And I don't know about you, but I've got this kind of pile in the corner of my kitchen. I mean, it's a really tidy kitchen otherwise, obviously, where my stuff sits until I put it somewhere else. And occasionally I'll be of a mind to tidy that up, and then I'll come across this certificate and think, do you know what? I had a really good time doing that. I might take a look into that. So giving an adult a taster certificate with your training centre written on it gives them a bit of a window into being able to recontact you. So it's a kind of slow burn advert for you. So certainly worth considering giving them out. I would say assume that people would like to receive them rather than assuming the opposite. So we are trying to go paperless. As you can imagine, the RYA is a fairly big machine in terms of the amount of paper and forms and things that we need to do within our recognition. But we're making a real inroads into that. And what we have got is all of the forms are up online within that training support site. You can find them through the document finder. And as a centre principal, you have a choice as to whether you complete it online and your inspector completes it also electronically, or whether you would prefer that you complete it on the computer and then print it out for them to finish in a paperwork version. Either is fine with us. We can deal with both. And in terms of instructor revalidation, where you used to get those the letters coming through, you still will get that letter, but actually you can head into the training support site and actually do your revalidation online for the small boat side of things. So take a look at that. Next time it comes up to your reval, you don't need to wait until the piece of post drops through your door. You can be proactive about it. So if you know you're going to be working away, or that you are heading off traveling, or you're doing something and you're concerned that your certificate might run out, you can hop back in there and revalidate it online. So this is the training support site I was mentioning. Lots and lots of great information on there. The training notices and guidance, those are sent out where there is a change to the recognition guidance notes. Those are sent out to the people who it's relevant to, but every single one of them sits on the training support site in chronological order. So if you think you've missed one, you can always hop back in there, or you could just have a little browse to see what sort of stuff you might have missed that's happening in other schemes. And then below that, we have that see latest. And in the most current rendition, it has got the COVID-19 information and FAQs right at the top of that. Up on the right-hand side, that panel there for document finder, this I think is one of the most useful things on the training support site, because I always know there's a form I need, but I can't remember where it sits. I'm sure you've probably felt similar to me on that one. So as you can see, this is a screenshot from when I last was doing an inspection. So I typed in INSP, and up popped all of the options there. So I immediately was able to find my inspection action plan form, or the another information there. So it cuts down how difficult it can be to find something. So I'm hoping you're finding that really useful, because I think that's a great addition to the training support site. So the online revalidation. Yep.
Oh, sorry. Can I just pause you there?
Yeah, of course.
I would. Okay. Actually, at the end of the next slide, I've got a question for you. Sorry, I didn't know you were flicking to that, but just yeah, continue to the next slide, and then I will ask you a question.
Not a lot to say about this, as I think I've just said it. What's the question?
I've got a question about the whole coronavirus and people revalidations during this period.
Yep.
And how does that work?
So in terms of the, if you head on to the COVID-19 section in the FAQs, it's got some information there about first aid certificates running out, which is probably the most likely thing to run out for any of our instructing body. And those, if they've run out between the 1st of March and the, since the 1st of March, they have automatically had an extra amount put on there, taking them to being valid until the 30th of September, and then we will review that. And in terms of the instructional side of things, I can't lay my hands on that information just now, but we can come back to that person about that.
Brilliant,
any other questions on that? Nope. Okay, so heading on again within the training support site, we've got a section on CPD. It sits under the qualifications area on the far right hand side, and you can find lots and lots of information on there. We've got lots of useful coaching articles, some of the most popular articles that have been wavelengths, so sometimes they can be found much more easily by heading to the CPD area. It's somewhere to regularly check, because we do alter that information. We alter that information very regularly. So it's worth keeping an eye on that, just for if you've got 5 or 10 minutes to spare, have a little look on there. You might pick up something interesting. And one thing you can also do is have a chat with your regional instructor, regional development officer, your RDO, to see what regional continual professional development is heading in your region, and see what's about. So quite a lot of people over the winter period attended the instructor training days, and I'm aware that there'll be a lot of people on here this evening that would have been on the one for Wales, the northeast and the south, and unfortunately your instructor training day has fallen victim to COVID-19. But there's lots and lots of things that gets organised throughout the year. So get in contact with your RDO, take a look at their, they all have social media feeds, and they'll have information coming up on there. And also keep your eye on this CPD area. And appointment holders, we will be in contact with you about different bits and bobs of CPD that we have coming up for you guys. So we've had a couple of surveys running over the winter period. One was about the coaches and trainers and looking at the revalidation process. And the second one was about the instructor training demands, which is where we were asking what qualifications are needed by your RTC in your area. What are you struggling to recruit? Is it senior instructors? Is it racing instructors? Is it advanced powerboat instructors? There's, we wanted to know what is lacking in your area, so that we can try to make sure that any of the training that's put out there is tailored to the region, and that the right courses are put on or organised or facilitated to ensure that we're helping our training centres to get the people they need to run the courses that they're recognised for. As you can see, the surveys are now closed, but we are analysing those results, and there'll be some information coming out shortly about that. Here's a good news one. The Trinity House Scholarship Fund is a fund that the RYA administers on behalf of Trinity House, who are the people that sort out the voyage all around the country. And there is a whole load of big pot of cash there for people to try to get into the small commercial vessel sector. So it will be for people who are wanting to work commercially within the SEV sector. So as you can see, there's been almost £30,000 awarded in the last couple of years to only 12 recipients, of which one person has applied and received it twice. So the applications for that are through you can find the information on the RYA website. If you put in RYA Trinity House Fund, you'll come up with that. And we accept the applications throughout the year, and then there is an interview process. So just pop an application in. It is for people to pay for, RYA training courses at a centre, which helps you on the route towards working in the commercial sector. So it's certainly, if you know somebody who's looking to do some training, who's looking to move into the small commercial vessel sector, then please kind of point them in the direction of this scholarship fund, because it's definitely got to be worth applying for. So mental health, this is super topical, not only at the minute, but over the last few years, this has picked up a lot of momentum, and we're hoping to do our part in terms of reducing stigma and helping to facilitate people working within the RYA training family. So what we're doing is we are putting together some resources for RYA training centres about mental health. What we're not trying to do is repeat what people like the NHS and Mind have got, because those guys are absolutely on top of this. They are the experts. What we're trying to do is give a pointer to our instructors and our RYA family to kind of look after each other. So the idea being that we are, by the end of our going through our resources, you'll be able to identify any problems or any down feelings that you're having yourself, that you will be able to have a kind of open ears and open heart to somebody wanting to talk to you about any problems that they're having, any struggles or challenges that they might be having from a mental health point of view. And what we want you to do, we're not trying to make you into clinicians or anything. We just want to make sure that you're able to feel comfortable with that conversation and know where to signpost people. As I say, we're certainly not trying to qualify mental health specialists. We just want everybody to be a bit more aware of the issues that people are facing, and to be welcoming of the conversations which might ensue, so that we can break down those barriers. Keep an eye out for that coming out later in the year. This is an initiative from RYA Sailability. More Than Sailing, hashtag More Than Sailing, is a whole set of resources which the Sailability Department have put together. And you can see on the far side there's 6 parts to this. It's a kind of a toolkit for sailability centres to be able to push out their product. And by that I mean let people know about what it is that sailing does, and what kind of benefits people can get from sailing. So it's not just that we take people out on boats and we have a nice time, but people gain confidence, that they feel happier, that they are wanting to come back and form part of a community. Whatever it is that people are getting from your sailability centre, this guide will help you to sell that to the wider community, so that people understand more about what you're doing. It improves your social media posts. There's some guidance on how to put together a social media post that is likely to get shared rather than kind of scrolled over. And there's also other training that's available from the disability awareness training, as you see listed at the top, to the contacts that you can have within the sailability department. So if that is something you'd be interested in, contact Sailability and tell them you're interested in the hashtag More Than Sailing project, and they will be able to point in the right direction and hopefully get you started trying to kind of overhaul websites and make sure that when eventually the situation does lift and we're able to get back on the water, that we're up and running and ready to welcome people in to get going and to enjoy the water like we do. Oh, here's one to catch your attention. Red writing at the top. Warning, sailing knife carriage. Okay, so this one, there's been an RYA instructor that was stopped recently. For whatever reason they were stopped. Their car was looked over, and within a bag in the boot, so in their sailing bag in the boot, in a pocket of that, a sailing knife was found, and they were prosecuted for holding an offensive weapon. So be really mindful in terms of carrying knives as to where you're going. You can only carry one if you're heading from your home to the sailing centre or the training centre, whatever it is you're doing, or back. You can't just nip in a Tesco's or something else. You need to be, you can't just have that knife on you routinely. I know that might have been something that many people have done in the past, but as this particular case proves, that's not something we can do nowadays. There's a link at the bottom there which takes you through to the knowledge and advice section of the RYA training of the RYA main site, which gives you the interpretation of the legal side of this from our legal department. So please take a look at that if you're at all worried, or I'm sure everyone's trying to think where their knife is at the minute and whether in actual fact it's in the car on their drive. Anyway, I leave that one with you to have a little think about. So a little bit on the power schemes. Just going to take a little drink here. So another numbery one. I'm sure you all know I love stats, but I thought this would be quite interesting because I'm always interested to know where I sit within the numbers and to see how big the group of my team is. So on the inland waterways side of things, we qualified 20 new instructors last year, and that brings our total to 200. Powerboat instructors, 600 new last year, into a total population of 7,000. And then the advanced powerboat instructors, you can see why there aren't that many courses because only 40 qualified last year. And then the PWIs, that's the personal watercraft instructors, there were 500 new, bringing our total to 3,500, second biggest group of instructors in the power schemes. Wow, central certification is 10 years old, and I'm sure you all remember the day it came out, just as I do. Well, maybe not quite, but hopefully you recognise the point behind it is fraud prevention, and to help our the people who've passed our courses, so our students, in the event that they lose their certificate, that they're already centrally recorded, so they can just contact us, and we should be able to reissue a certificate. Because if they're in on the database, that's really easy for us to do. I mean, there is a charge for that, but it is easy for us to identify. So this has really helped us to make sure that training is occurring at training centres, and to understand when a certificate hasn't been registered. Now, one thing I will say is when a certificate hasn't been registered and it comes in for something, so let's take, for example, Powerboat Level 2. That can be used for a dinghy instructor. They require Powerboat Level 2 for that. It could be somebody wanting an ICC, International Certificate of Competence, or it could be that they want a commercial endorsement on it. So those three things, it will come into our certification department where it will be checked. And if it isn't registered, we can't continue with the processing. So from having your student who came along to the course and had a ball of a time in the sunshine with you, I'm sure, and really enjoyed the course, to them sending it in to get the certificate thereafter, to that being held up, they turn from being a super excited person who really enjoyed it to somebody who is really not at all happy with either your training centre or RYA Training. So we do chase this up pretty vigorously, and I'm sure there's quite a few people on here that might have had an email that's come through saying, please can you register this certificate? Please do so, because it really helps to make sure things are rolling in the right direction, and that people can get a swift response in terms of getting their new certificate. So please, let's make a big push for its 10-year anniversary, that we try to get all those certificates registered as far as absolutely possible. If you are contacted and for some reason or another it hasn't been registered, but it was before your time, or it was for whatever reason, please respond to that email and let us know. We need to engage and have a conversation so that we can work out a solution. Please don't just ignore that, because that tends to get a bit fraught on all sides. So please engage with us when we drop you an email about that. A little MAIB report, Marine Accident Investigation Branch.
Can I just ask you a question? It's just popped up that's been aired before. I just want to check that I'm going to get this answer right. I've had a few people asking me how far back they can check powerboat courses that they've registered online. Are they still restricted on a 3-month view, or can they go back further than that now?
It's still a 3-month view on there.
Okay. So if they want to look back further than that, is our advice to contact Emma?
If you can't see whether you've done it, then contact Emma. But so if it's that you've forgotten whether you've registered it, contact Emma and ask. Otherwise, you can register one that you've gone, oh, I found this down the back of my seat. Oops, should have done that 3 months ago. You can still go onto the certificate registration hub and register it. It's just a slightly different form, so you can still register older ones, but it's much better if you do them within the 3 months, because that cuts down the workload at RYA Training's end.
Thank you.
Any more questions on that?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Okay, the Inland Waterways Marine Accident Investigation Branch report. So you're going to have to get your faces up close to your screen here, I'm afraid, because I'm going to describe that button fender. On the bottom picture, there's a small fender which should protrude past the end of the rudder, so that it gets hit rather than the rudder in the event that you're backing into something. So this is a really sad case, and I bring this one up because not only for our inland waterways instructors, but also if anybody is at all thinking about having a staycation at some stage or going on an inland waterways vessel, a narrowboat, then they're certainly going to be going in locks. And I want you all to know about this safety point. So that button fender needs to protrude past the end of the rudder. In the case of the image above, this vessel was going heading uphill in the lock, so it's gone into the bottom lock. The doors, the lock gates are closed behind it. The water comes in from the bow end, and it lifted. Unfortunately, as it did, the boat's always forced backwards, but this one absolutely ended up with its the rudder stuck between the lock gates as they pinched shut, which then jammed the vessel. And as the water came in, as the water filled up the lock, it flooded into the vessel, and sadly one person lost their life. Had there been a button fender which went all the way to the end, there's a strong possibility that couldn't have happened. So please as inland waterways instructors, please do talk about the button fender and have a look at it and talk about what the point of it is. And if you're going on a holiday on one, please look at it and check to see that it protrudes past the end of the rudder. And for our instructors, just making sure that we're talking about making the lock safe. So if something untoward does occur in the lock, that we stop the flow of water to try and rectify the situation, because that's the only way we can make the situation safer. Stopping the flow of water allows us to stabilize the situation and take a look at what's going on. So for the advanced powerboat instructors, I really want you to dedicate some time this year to trying to get on top of radar and electronic navigation. So we are going to do some CPD sessions later in the year, but go on, treat yourselves to either borrowing, if that's even possible these days, the introduction to radar book, or taking a look at it. You can get that as an ebook or as the paper book. But really trying to get on top of the basics of radar. We're talking about how we can measure distance and interpreting risk of collision, and well, range and bearing, and collision avoidance. Basically, there's a little bit more to it than that, but there will be some CPD sessions coming up later in the year. But I just wanted to highlight that we are having to ramp up on this. People are being examined on this, and although I know there aren't radar on many of our vessels, it's still something that people should have a bit of an idea about as they step forward into the commercial world. One more thing about the power side of things, with the powerboat trainers course. So these are the people who train instructors. So I've changed the eligibility for that, in that you now have to be a powerboat instructor who is experienced and has knowledge to the level of day skipper, got to personally hold the intermediate or advanced course, and also have completed the PPR course, which is the commercial course, so you can get a good understanding about the kind of questions that a candidate might ask. Now, I've altered this because there are certain regions within the UK where we would really struggle to get people to have enough experience to be able to become advanced powerboat instructors, and then they don't get to use it. So I think there's plenty of people out there who are very, very talented powerboat instructors, but who might not progress in their current situation towards advanced powerboat instructors. So I've opened that up. And although the closing date for this was yesterday, I thought it was still useful to leave the slide up so that we can, just to let you know that every year, the 31st of March is the closing date for applying to go on to a selection for that. So what happens there is people apply, and we will then, that'll be my alarm, people apply for selection, and then we take a look at where they're applying from, the area, and if we're in need of them, more trainers from that area, and a number of other factors, and then we may invite them to a trainer selection day. On to the sailing and windsurfing update. Oh, hello, no we won't. What's going on? Okay, back up and running. A few bits and bobs from the sailing and windsurfing side of things, starting off with the RYA has now got a revised recognition guidance note for the keelboat scheme. So if that is something you're either interested in or that your training centre already does, it's worth checking that and having a little read through of that. It goes through, it's taken a long time to arrive at the point where we could have an RGN for keelboats because of the sheer volume of vessels that could or couldn't do or don't fit into it. But now we have a training notice, so please take a look at that. And it talks about, as it says on there, the types of vessels, the characteristics and the kind of operation you might be running with it. So that's one for the keelboats. Moving on, RYA foiling. We've heard a lot about that over the last couple of years. But one thing we wanted to reiterate is that foiling is an activity that happens, it's kind of an extension within the sailing and windsurfing schemes. It's not a scheme on its own. But there are plenty of training opportunities for instructors to be able to move on to delivering foiling. And for anyone out there who's an inspector, the guidance is available direct from Molly and Amanda with regards to foiling. But hopefully, I'm hoping to give this a crack this year. So as soon as we get let out, I'm up for giving that a go if anyone wants to take me. Okay, moving on to a sad note, the keelboat fatality that happened in the north of England at the end of last season. So we are still awaiting a Marine Accident Investigation Branch report on this. It is in the making, it is in the writing, and it should be with us fairly soon, but we have been saying that for a little while now. But these are the points that we think are going to come out of it. So we think it's going to be things that we need to address as centres, in that we need to be aware of all of the vessels that we're using and the people who will be sailing in them. So we need to do individual risk assessments and be sure that everybody knows how to rescue every vessel that we use in the fleet, because there might well be some that are not used very often, or we don't get to take out much, or that we're not very used to using. But it's really important at the start of the season that we get everybody together and that we have an opportunity to look at how these things perform, how we tow them, how we set them up, understanding what happens with their lifting keel, whether there's a locking mechanism, and understanding that although they say they don't capsize, anything that's pushed hard enough can and will capsize. So anything that gets into those conditions, we need to understand how the vessels are rigged, how we can depower them, and if you're taking out a vessel, if a vessel is going out from your centre, you need to have a really good look over it and make sure everybody understands how to operate in and around that vessel. And in addition, there are some safety boat techniques that we've been testing out, and certainly the sailability, we'll be putting out some more information about that, and there will be some more training going on, organised via sailability for people who are delivering training within a sailability environment, and therefore using vessels which aren't traditionally used within a safety boat course. But almost all of the techniques adapt straight across, but it's about understanding the vessels. The other thing that's going to come out, we think, is making sure we're having guided conversations about life jackets and buoyancy aids, so that an individual user understands what the merits are of the kind of buoyancy that they choose to use, and that they are making an informed decision about its usage. Not all buoyancy aids fit very easily to somebody who has a particular disability, so it's about understanding the person, having that conversation, and everybody being fully aware of what benefits the particular type of buoyancy is bringing versus what the risks are of the use of that. So certainly some more information about having those guided conversations is coming out via sailability. Duke of Edinburgh's award then, this is something that can be done in all of our training centres, on all of our courses. Parts of each of those courses and lots of the operation of a training centre or club can count towards the DOV award. So there is already a programme that's set up for the RYA squads, but equally, if you are a training centre or a club, you could engage your youngsters, you could engage them for potentially for longer, getting them involved and helping them towards this Duke of Edinburgh's award scheme. There are 3 different levels, and there are 4 or 5 sections depending on the level within each of those, and each of those items could be completed within a club environment or a training centre environment. If it's something you think that your youngsters might be interested in, when I say youngsters, it's from 14 to 25, then please, first of all, get them to take a look at the RYA website, the DofE, so rya.org.uk/go/DofE. Get them to take a look at that area of the website, because that will answer a whole ton of their questions, but also put them in touch with Molly or Amanda, who are our experts in the department on the DofE award. So, Discover Sailing. I'm sure there's plenty of clubs that are already signed up to this, and well, we haven't managed to get out sailing yet, have we? That's something that's not happening at the moment. So we're into Plan B. Plan B is that the Discover Sailing project will run from the 1st of July to the 30th of September. There will be a promotional campaign that was going to be centered around the Olympics, but obviously they've now been postponed. So they are still thinking about when that promotional campaign will happen. Obviously, it needs to be in tune with once we're allowed back out and the lockdown is removed and life starts to return to normal. But if you are interested in putting on an event that will go on before the 30th of September, and we've all got our fingers crossed on that, then contact Discover Sailing at rya.org.uk. Plan C, if Plan B doesn't happen, if we don't get to go sailing, then that will be communicated and is a to be continued, as you can see.